What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, man, it was a tough day in the South Side. They were hit with a very unfortunate, untimely injury just ahead of their week 3 matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll dive into that, but they did get some good news both on their front and, well, the Los Angeles Chargers front as rookie Roman Wilson is making his way back on the field. We'll talk about his impact in this game, what his role will likely be for the Steelers. And on the other side of the ball, Justin Herbert has been the name to watch all week, and we finally get some results there. Meanwhile, what does Justin Fields have to do in week 3 to make sure week 4, 5, 6, and the rest of them are his? And, well, it's Friday, so we're diving into predictions. Pittsburgh Steelers, Los Angeles Chargers. It's a good one here in the Berg. I'm excited. A little date night tonight with the wife, which is always nice. You guys, before the show, had a little bit of date night, too, a little free publicity to some car services. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm juiced. I'm ready to go. My adrenaline's certainly pumping. Yes. Me and my wife are certainly having a little bit of I don't know if it's a fun date night, but it's certainly a shared experience. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
But definitely it's been a day. So I'm excited to talk some football here.
It sounds like it has been a day. Shared experience. You know what I mean? That's what marriage is all about, is yelling at some people on the phone and trying to get the best deal for a car. That's what Fridays, they're always made of. You could be having a tough Friday, but unfortunately not as tough as Troy Fautanu, who went down today to end the week of practice. Broderick Jones broke that news, which we'll just start there real fast. I get it that reporters got to ask questions and players are going to answer, and Broderick Jones has always been a very respectful, straightforward guy. Mike Tomlin's probably not happy that he leaked the Troy tweaked his something and he has to get an MRI. And this is all information that, well, the general public did not need to know, but now we do know. Troy Fautanu went down, knee injury, according to Broderick, tweaked something, will undergo an MRI. He is listed as questionable for week 3 against the LA Chargers. Not a good spot to be in. Super unfortunate. This is the second time since he joined the Steelers that he's dealing with a knee injury. I don't know if it's the same knee. I don't know if this is his MCL. I don't know if it's worse or if it's different or if it's just an aggravation of the injury that he dealt with during the preseason. But either way, very tough spot to be in if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and rookie Troy Fautanu. I mean, we'll dive into everything that comes with this, but Troy goes down. You said it before the show, so I won't steal your spotlight on this one. What were your first thoughts?
Yeah, my first thoughts, and I had completely forgotten about it until one of the listeners on Twitter kind of linked back to a story from around draft time about the Steelers not being concerned about Troy Fautanu's injury red flags that had popped up during the pre-draft process. I forgot that these had existed. Now, again, not saying that this is something that is related to that, but it is just something that in the back of my head, you make the connection, pre-draft issues. It's the reason that some people believed he fell as far as he did to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers say they weren't concerned. And now this is the second time that we've seen him injure the knee, come back, and then injure potentially the knee once again. So it is concerning a little bit, but again, you can't draw conclusions until you hear about everything that's happened, but that is certainly the connection that I made in my head. It might be nothing, it might be something, but that's the one thing and the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, it's not a good spot to be in. It's alarming. It's early, and it's a lot. We're 3 weeks into his rookie career. He's dealing with 2 injuries, both on the knee. That is not what you're looking for in an offensive lineman, especially a guy that just cracked the starting lineup. The Steelers have super high hopes for him. I mean, he just beat out your 14th pick in the draft a year ago in 2 weeks, really a week. It took him 1 week to become the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now he's back on the injury report with the knee injury. We don't know how serious it is. If he misses significant time, you got to start thinking, okay, what are the long-term effects of this? Is this just the beginning? On the other side of this, what are those red flags? Because that's important to ask, is what are those red flags? Are those red flags Juju Smith-Schuster, his knee is a ticking time bomb? Or are his red flags, he has some knee stuff and you should probably clean up the knee stuff. And maybe as a rookie, he's not going to be 100%. And there are things that you need to work on. But maybe as a sophomore, maybe as a second, maybe as a third year guy, you can clean those things up in an offseason and it won't limit him moving forward. It's more of a get in there and kind of dig around situation than a this is going to be career ending. I don't know what those red flags are. That's an important question to ask and have answered. But right now, this is not the best spot to be in if you're the Steelers, and certainly not a good spot to be in if you're Troy Fautanu. On the other side of this, you try to find some good news. The good news is, well, that redemption that Mike Tomlin wanted to really screw Broderick Jones with, he's going to get it on Sunday. Chances are he's going to start at right tackle. He gets one more shot to say, hey, look, I'm going to come out here and these struggles are going to go away and I'm ready to do this. And hey, Monday morning, we might have to talk about whether or not Broderick Jones or Troy Fautanu should be starting at tackle, or really if Broderick Jones could bump his way over to the left side if Troy becomes healthy sooner rather than later and kick Dan Moore out of this, because that's what we're looking at. That is the opportunity that is presented to us if Broderick Jones starts on Sunday. If he stinks, this conversation is pointless. And you put him back on the bench, and when Troy's back, who cares? If he's fantastic, the Steelers just got an opportunity to say, maybe it's time. Maybe a conversation that we already had scheduled for a year from now, that we were very certain was going to happen a year from now, happens now because Broderick gets one more shot and he gets a little push. He gets that kind of kick in the butt to say, you got to do this right now. You can't be messing around anymore. And maybe that's what he needed to kind of take that step forward. We'll see. Massive news for the Steelers. Like if Troy's not out there, the Steelers might get lucky, because we're about to talk about Justin Herbert, and they might get lucky and Justin Herbert might not play. And look at Easton Stick. He's got a cool name and I'm sure he's a good dude, but he's 0-4 as a starting quarterback. The Raiders scored 107 points against the guy. It's not a name that you're concerned about. It's not a name that you're going to predict the Chargers come in here and beat the undefeated Steelers and TJ Watt and Easton Stick puts up the best performance of the year thus far against the number one defense in football. I just don't think that's going to happen. So the Steelers could get very lucky. If they don't, they better hope that Broderick Jones comes out here and puts on a show, because you're losing a massive piece. I will say, of all injuries, though, losing your rookie right tackle to where your second year first round pick right tackle could step in, as good as it gets where we sit right here. You have any final thoughts on Troy Fautanu?
Yeah, it is obviously very unfortunate, especially because of how good we saw him perform in Denver. And it seemed to be like, okay, he's put that injury past him from preseason, and now they can go and they have something at right tackle that is good, but the injury issues just continue to persist, especially on the offensive line, which is unfortunate because we saw how much Omar Khan zeroed in on the offensive line. I mean, 3 draft picks in the NFL draft, not to mention, kind of restructuring everything from this offensive line and hoping that they can build from there outward. And the fact that they've, had injuries with Herbert being out long-term, with Siamalu missing the beginning of the season, with, Dylan Cook, who's also, that's a big factor in this, is that they don't have Dylan Cook, who was essentially their swing tackle coming into the season, which him going down forced Broderick into technically falling into the swing tackle position. To lose Fautanu on top of all of that again, is huge. So hopefully it's something minor. I mean, even if he misses Sunday, you're hoping that it's something that he can bounce back from next week, but it is a huge blow either way for the Steelers to lose him again.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the Dylan Cook aspect of this. You look at the Steelers, right? This is, we're getting it. We joked about this 2 weeks ago, how the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to not only use Spencer Anderson as the starting left guard, potential backup center, but also swing guard or swing tackle. Here we are. We're here. That is what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at. They might call up a John LeGlue from the practice squad, but man, you got to think Spencer Anderson's playing a massive role this week if Troy Fautanu can't go. And I would imagine Troy Fautanu is not going to go. If he got hurt today, he's got to undergo an MRI. Chances are he's not feeling 100% or anywhere close by Sunday. And that's the name you're not going to risk. You're not going to risk the guy who has 2 knee injuries 3 weeks into the season when you have an easy backup. If you were in a tougher spot, I get it, but they're not really in a tougher spot when it comes to Troy Fautanu. We'll have more updates hopefully by Sunday, but right now where we stand, I have a hard time believing he's going to play. Massive blow for the Steelers, and it leads to a boatload of questions moving forward. The future of the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is certainly in question right now, and they are dealing with injury after injury and just to the worst pieces that they could possibly deal with where we sit right now. On the other side of the injury report, Roman Wilson's back. This is awesome. This is the first time we get the rookie wide receiver out there all throughout the preseason, now into the regular season. Roman Wilson off the injury report, doesn't have a designation at all. This is a big day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, me and you talked about this yesterday. What's he looking like? How good is he going to be? And how much is he going to play? You shouldn't expect a lot out of Roman Wilson. You shouldn't look at him and say, this dude is going to put up 110 yards and 10 catches and maybe score a touchdown. He's going to be the wide receiver 2. I expect a very limited role for Roman Wilson. Nothing crazy. Just an easier way back into this. But it's the beginning. And it's the beginning of a day that the Steelers have waited long and hard for. And they have pushed this out. And it comes at the right time because we talked, what was that, Tuesday? Maybe it was Wednesday, about go get Adam Thielen. We're here. The wide receiver trade market is going to start heating up in the next week or two. Okay, cool. Now you get to see what you got in Roman Wilson. You get a week or two to figure out what this rookie could bring you right off the bat. And you project what's going to come from there, but you have to get your feet wet before you start swimming. And the Steelers are about to get their feet wet with Roman Wilson. You got a stat line. You think he catches a pass in this one?
Yeah, I'd give him, I think they're going to try to get the ball in his hands just intentionally, whether that is on a screen pass or a quick out. They're going to try to get the ball in Roman Wilson's hands in this game. I don't know how much usage he's going to get throughout the entire game, but I'll say he gets 2 catches in this one because I think that the Steelers want him to break out as that number 2. We talked, I think it was Monday or Tuesday when before the show or off air, we were joking, Ladd McConkey of the Chargers has 65 receiving yards. He would be the 3rd highest receiver on the Steelers. Maybe, outside of being small, shifty inside receivers, him and Roman Wilson are kind of the same mold. Maybe that's what Roman Wilson can be for the Steelers in the first couple of weeks when he comes back. But that's what I see. I see him being a guy that they try to get open in space and a guy that, everybody's been preaching. Can we get something over the middle? I think that's where Roman Wilson does some of his best work. So maybe you see him catch something in the middle, but I do think they're going to try to get him the ball a couple times early in this one to try to get his feet underneath him because they need him to pick it up quickly. They need him to get into that offense quickly because they need as much reinforcement as they can get.
Yeah, 2 catches would be
great.
Nuts. That would be
I'll take it.
Such a stat line for a Steelers wide receiver outside of George Pickens that we would be talking. If he comes up with 20 yards, we're coming back. Roman might be a thing. Might have a guy here. You never know. Might be 2nd best wide receiver. You have 20 yards in a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Chances are you are the 2nd leading receiver in that game by a long, long margin because nobody else is coming anywhere close. I would say 2 catches is a good spot. They are certainly going to try to get the ball in his hands, and I would imagine early and often to try to make things work, but they're not going to take away from George Pickens. And again, we're going to get to Herbert here in just a second. If Herbert's not playing, this is a Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, Cordero Patterson game. Justin Fields does not. We're going to talk about Justin Fields and what he has to do in this one. He might not get the opportunities to do that because the Pittsburgh Steelers might just say, all we got to do is kick a field goal. We kick 1 field goal, chances are we win. Everything's okay, and they'll win the game on defense. And that's, people say, no, it is crazy, but it's how Mike Tomlin will think in a game where Easton Stick is the starting quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, let's talk Justin Herbert, and then we'll head into a break. We do have 2 questions I want to answer after we're done with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, questionable, did not practice today. He's got significant tape. Did you see the picture of his ankle all taped up? Looks like a freaking robot leg, full cast on that ankle. High ankle sprains, those are not 1-week recoveries, almost ever. And I understand who Justin Herbert is, and I understand the importance to him and the Chargers and how big of an impact he can have and how much trust they have in this guy. And out of all the positions, the quarterback position is the one where you could walk out there at 50% and your coach will let you go because 50% you is better than 100% your backup almost every single time. I don't know if Justin Herbert's going to play. I got a hard time believing that Justin Herbert's anywhere near 50%. And if he's a pocket passer, if he's a guy that's just going to sit there, yeah, they have a great offensive line. Don't get me wrong. Rashad Slater and Joe Walt have their hands full in TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, but you could say it's the other way around too. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have their hands full against a very good Chargers offensive line. I don't really care. If you can't move, you're going to get hit at least once. Chances are more than once, couple of times in this one. And I think it's too early. That's on the Steelers side here. The Steelers have an advantage because it's only week 3. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I don't care that I'm 2-0. Actually, in fact, I do care that I'm 2-0. I feel pretty good that I'm 2-0 and at the top of my division because that allows me to say, Justin, man, we need you for week 4. We need you for week 5. Where we don't need you is week 3 against Pittsburgh for a game that essentially means this much in the grand scheme of an entire season. I have a hard time believing Justin Herbert's going to go. If I had to guess, he does not. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, when I look at this injury, I mean, you mentioned the picture. It looked like the whole roll of tape was on his ankles. So, I mean, pray for the Chargers' bottom line because they're going to spend a lot on tape for Justin Herbert. But, I mean, he's a guy that you mentioned it. He is vastly important to their team. But at the same time, you look at his ankle and you look at it as something that they don't want to get worse. This is not a division game for them. This is not in the throes of a playoff race for them. This is week 3. They're already 2-0. They have the leading rusher in the NFL through 2 weeks in J.K. Dobbins. They might be a little bit more cautious with this. Again, it's Justin Herbert. This is a guy that on countless occasions has shown how tough he is and how much he wants to play through a lot of injuries. There's been a couple of occasions where he's done that in the NFL already. So I'm not counting him out, but I'm just saying in the back of Harbaugh's head, he could be thinking exactly what you thought, which is this is week 3. We still got plenty of important matchups to go. Heal up. We'd rather you be healthy.
Yeah, I agree. And there is the shot that literally there's a shot that chances are puts him out there. You know, he walks in there on game day. They toss a little vitamin T in that bad boy and he's feeling fantastic. He plays. And that happens all the time. Like we cannot rule that out by no means that come Sunday, some miracle potion of the NFL has willed Justin Herbert's ankle back to good enough to play. There is enough tape, and Pittsburgh's full of tape. We got tape out the wazoo. If he needs tape, he'll make it happen. I'm not going to ever rule him out. I just think it's wild to risk a long-term injury and to let your quarterback get the crap beat out of him because that's what's going to happen here is he's not going to be able to move. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Peyton Wilson, Landon Roberts, so on and so forth. It's just going to smack this guy. And then you're going to risk him getting beat up even worse for a game in week 3 that really doesn't mean a lot in the long run of things. And yeah, look it's an AFC battle. I get it. Your quarterback means so much more. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I got a hard time sitting here and saying Justin Herbert's going to go. And man, that's good news for the Steelers, but obviously we'll dive into our predictions in a little while. All right. I want to answer these 2 questions and then we'll hit a break, talk some Justin Fields, give our predictions. And as we do every day, we will answer all of your questions. Make sure you're tossing them in the chat. No doubting Coach T's ability to motivate Broderick Jones. I agree. Broderick was cool the other day, man. I enjoyed talking to him. I get nervous talking to guys who just got benched because it would piss me off if I just got benched, if I just was told I'm not good enough, I would not be happy to go out and talk to people asking me why I suck. It just wouldn't be a conversation I'm looking to have. He was super cool about it. Him saying, look you F up, you're getting benched. It was cool. So I think Broderick's going to bounce back. I think Broderick's very motivated. He's so young. He's got so much time left in the NFL. He's got so much growth ahead of him. He's just a guy that strikes me as like he's going to turn into something big, and we're just going to look at this as a blemish in a long, successful career. That's what I get out of Broderick Jones. And then here's the other one here. Stephen Cornfield, why do we have more injuries and practices than games. I don't know, man. I think it's a running joke in the city of Pittsburgh that you are not part of the Pittsburgh Steelers unless you suffer a soft tissue injury, especially on defense. I think that's why Patrick Queen had a groin injury. Oh, what was that, a week ago? I think he was just like, yeah, had a rough week one, need something to go well. And TJ's like, hey, man, did you try a groin injury? Tends to work pretty well. I have a feeling that, I don't know what goes on. I have no idea what goes on to get these guys hurt. Troy's a rough example because he's an offensive lineman. Even if you're not going hard, you're constantly moving and you're constantly making contact, and it's not full contact, but you just never know when you take that wrong step or you plant weird or something happens. And I did not see the injury occur, so I can't sit here and detail how it went down. I'm not allowed to do that anyways, but I just have a feeling like offensive linemen, it could be a billion things, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was just a non-contact, drop him back, see what happens. But again, we don't know. It's a weird Pittsburgh thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing by no means, and it is fair to call them out. All right, we're going to dive into Justin Fields, our predictions for week 3, especially if Justin Herbert does not go, and answer all of your questions as we do every single day. But first, we got a word from our boys over at DraftKings. It's football season, and we've teamed up with DraftKings. Right now, you can get involved in even more action with DraftKings Pick6, a brand new way to play daily fantasy sports. And the best part, all new customers who play $5 will get $50 in Pick6 credits. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Pick6 app now, sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS, and get kicking. Only on DraftKings Pick6, the crown is yours. Getting started is simple. Just download the DraftKings Pick6 app and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS. From there, just pick at least 2 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Lock them in and compete against others for a shot at a huge cash prize. Download the DraftKings Pick6 app now and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS only on DraftKings Pick6. The crown is yours. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. Nick, when you watch these, edit these picks, these ad reads, do you watch the whole 10-minute video that I put together for you? Or?
Oh, of course I do. Don't think that I'm missing the 10-minute video that is laced with profanity, by the way.
Laced with profanity. With profanity.
Puts the hangover to shame with the amount of profanity that's in some of these things. But yeah, I need every once in a while, and I keep them too. Every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? Let's just throw on some of these blooper reels, which I should honestly put together and send to you one day, or just drop it on the YouTube and let everybody else see it without you knowing.
Either one would be very brutal. I go down, so I'll leave the little office and I'll go downstairs, and once in a while, like Jillian will be home when I'm doing these, and she'll like look at me. She'll be like, "You good?" I'm like, "Oh yeah. How are you?" She's like, "What were you doing up there?" I'm like, "Oh, I was recording an ad read, and it took me 15 minutes to record 1 minute ad read. Took me 40 tries." So it does. They're not the greatest. I've always wondered if you sat there and just listen to me. It's just quick, easy F-bombs and a lot of things.
It is almost as good as previously, whenever, of course, everybody sees the thumbnails that we have for all these episodes, when you used to record about 50-second to a minute-long videos of just faces where there is no audio and it's just you making emotions. It is certainly something that brightens my day.
Yeah, I'm glad. All right. I'm glad that I could add a little joy. We'll share it one day. All right. Let's dive into Justin Fields here. Week 3, starting quarterback, Russell Wilson. Chances are he's not going to play. I have a hard time believing that you're limited 2 days, 3 days this week and questionable. And then Mike Tomlin says, there you go, pal. It's all yours. So the big question, we've answered this question 3 times now, but you got to be getting close. You have to be getting close to this is the week that it becomes Justin Fields' opportunity to make this his starting job for the remainder of the season. And I listened to Louis Riddick today on the Rich Eisen show talk about how this is Justin Fields' job and it's ridiculous to go back to Russell Wilson where they stand right here. I listened to Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, who talked about, look, like the Steelers love Justin Fields and have loved him since the second he got here. And the fact that he's doing these things, even if he's not scoring a boatload of touchdowns, is showing maybe he's a Steeler and maybe he deserves to stay the Steelers quarterback. So I'll ask you, I got thoughts. Is this the week? This is the week Justin's got the opportunity to do what he can do to earn this job long term. And if that's the case, what's he have to do?
I think to answer the first part of the question, is this the week? The thing that I'm going to say is it's not the week yet, but I think this is an important week, right? If he goes out there and does what I'm about to say, and then there's the second half of this, which is what does Russell Wilson look like next week? And if Russell Wilson looks the same, which for all intents and purposes, there is nothing that has been reported or said that leads me to believe that anything is changing with that scenario, then next week will be the week in my eyes. That week 4 against the Colts, if you can do it for a quarter of a season, it is your job. And by it, I mean this weekend, he needs to simply 3 things: win the football game, which he's been doing so far, protect the football, which is what he has been doing so far, and I need to see him get into the end zone a couple of times. Once or twice, get into the end zone, lead long drives. If he has one of these splash plays, that's great. We've seen him have the ability to make these splash plays, but finish, execute, get into the end zone. If he can do those 3 things, I'm looking at next week as hey, this is the last straw. I think that if you can build it through a quarter of the season and continue to do what you're doing, now, of course, if he goes out and throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, then it kind of breaks the mold here. But based on expectations, get in the end zone a couple times, protect the football and win the game. And then all the pressure is on Russ to get back on the field, because if he's not on the field, then I think by the time he steps on the field in Indianapolis, it's Justin's job.
Do you think that if Justin Herbert does not play and the Pittsburgh Steelers feel pretty safe about where they sit, they open this up and let Justin see what Justin could do?
No, it's Mike Tomlin.
You don't think in some sick, twisted way, Mike Tomlin would be like, yeah, all right, this is the one. We're going to see what happens, and just let him launch it a couple of times?
I mean, he hasn't done that for 18 seasons? As much as I'd like to say yes, it's Mike Tomlin, and the standard is the standard, and we know what he's going to do. And we'll get to our score predictions, but I think Tomlin's going to rather try to win the game the Tomlin way than just saying, well, since Herbert's out, the backup quarterback situation has not always been something that Steelers fans are like, oh no, because they're going to play down to it anyway. So I don't think he opens it up simply because Easton Stick or Taylor Heineke is behind center for the Chargers.
Oh, is Taylor Heineke in LA?
Taylor Heineke was traded there a couple of weeks ago. And actually today there was a report that said Harbaugh was saying that, Heineke has grasped the offense and he's come along really quickly. So I wouldn't rule out Heineke either to be behind center for the Chargers.
I will say Harbaugh said earlier in the week that Easton Stick would be the starter, but I agree with
That's
you.
Fine too. I mean,
it wouldn't. I mean, I'd rather Heineke. Heineke's a great quarterback. In my eyes, great backup quarterback. But the Steelers side of things, you want Easton Stick. Man, I don't know. You make sense. I can't argue against that argument. That argument, it covers all the ground, and that is the logical side of thinking when in this conversation. There's something in the gut that says Mike Tomlin's just sick guy, twisted in the head sometimes, does things that no one could explain almost all the time. And if he just went out there, Acrisure Stadium, home opener, Jim Harbaugh's on the other side, and just started saying, Justin, you want to score 60? Let's see if we can score 60. And just tried to do it, and just tried to do it and just saw what he could do. And I don't know. There's just something in it that we're hitting the point, okay, where we are getting to that game. I don't know if it's this week, but we are getting close to that game. You can't push this out forever if you're the Steelers. Like, you can't go into week 7, week 8 and be like, I don't know, man. If Russ comes back, we might still make quarterback change. We're 8-0, but you never know. At some point, we're getting dangerously close to that line. And Mike Tomlin knows that we're getting dangerously close to that line. And I could just envision, again, it doesn't make any sense. There's no argument here that I could sit down and logically make, but there's just something in my brain that says I could picture going there on Tuesday for Mike to say, yep, Justin's done enough. He's our, what we saw on Sunday, he's our quarterback. We're going to move forward. Justin's going to be the guy. He'll say it in Tomlin ways where it's like not really answering the question, but he just sprinkles in the yes in there somewhere. But again, I can't argue it, but there's just something in there. On my side of things, what Justin really has to do to end this, to quiet this, to continue this momentum is just like you said, he can't turn the ball over. I'm talking turnover free. The moment he throws an interception is the moment we start to have the, okay, well, now you got to look good. Now it's no longer well, you haven't looked bad. Justin's looked like he's got a lot of promise. The second you turn the ball over, it's you got to look good now. That's over. You wasted the no turnover situation. Can't turn the ball over. The Steelers offense has to look good against a very good defense. So you have to remember that it's going to be a very good defense. The Chargers are no weak link in their defense. And you gotta win the game, and it's got to be another convincing win. I think 13-6 was a convincing win. The numbers don't say it was a convincing win, but nobody watched that game and thought the Broncos were going to win. At no point did you think that. Atlanta, no point did you think Atlanta was going to win that football game. Do it again with the Chargers. At no point have anybody worry about whether or not the Steelers are going to lose this. It just gives you the confidence. And I don't know if it cracks week 4, but I do think it brings up, I think it brings up the finish line. I think you do that this week. Next week's the finish line. And we have a real conversation about whether or not Justin's the guy, as long as he goes to Indy and wins a football game and doesn't look terrible. It's 2 more here. Justin's got to do 2 more good games. And if he could do 2 more good games and the Steelers are 4-0, sorry, Russ, but it was great to know you. It was a lot of fun. You're not going to start a football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers unless something happens in week whatever with Justin Fields. But I agree with you. It's tough to say, but there's just something in my brain, man. There's something in my brain. All right. We'll end our agenda the way we end every Friday. I believe you're 1-1. I'm 2-0 here. You said all week long that you're having a tough time. It's going to come down to Justin Herbert. It's going to come down to Justin Herbert. What's his status? I'm still uncertain about what side I'm picking here. Well, Justin Herbert's status is questionable with a lot of tape. So I'm going to let you start this one. First off, toss me the odds. Toss me the over. Steelers, Chargers, our bets week 3.
Yeah, the home opener. Steelers are 3-point favorites, and the over-under sits at a typical for Steelers game, 35 points.
They're getting worse by the week here.
Yes.
They're getting worse. What was it? The week 1, it was 42 or something. Week 2 was 36.5. Now we're 35.5.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, these are bad numbers. The under hits hard, though. The under hits hard. And I think it's going to hit hard this week, too, if we're going to be really honest. All right. I'll let you go first because we've been waiting all week in anticipation for your answer. What do you got here? What'd you end up with? Justin Herbert, questionable, lots of tape.
Yeah, I did go back and forth on this one, and I mentioned earlier in the week that before the season, I had this penciled in as a loss, as much as it hurts my soul, because I hate predicting a loss in the Steelers home opener because that's just not what anybody wants to see. But with Herbert going down, I still have to respect the Chargers because they do have that dynamic running game that has J.K. Dobbins, who leads the NFL in rushing by a large margin through the first 2 weeks of the season. And they also have, right up there with the Steelers, one of the best defenses in football so far this year. But I am going to lean towards the Steelers in this one. Now, whether that's Herbert going or Herbert not going, even if he's in the game, he's not going to be able to do typical Justin Herbert things. And I think the Steelers are going to take advantage of that, especially with that pass rush that has been oh so crazy this year, as well as that secondary who has been ball hawks all year long. If you told me 2 weeks into the season, the only members of the secondary that don't have interceptions are Joey Porter and Minka Fitzpatrick, I'd say you're crazy, but that's still pretty nice that everybody else has a pick. That's where we stand right now. So I'm leaning towards the Steelers, although I do think that this one leans towards the under as well. I'm going Steelers 17, Chargers 16, last second field goal by the pause, closes it out for Pittsburgh.
Wow. That's so much closer than, even if Justin Herbert doesn't go, that's your same score.
Again, I'll say for the second time in this episode, it is Mike Tomlin against a backup quarterback at home. He will play down to this opponent if he needs to. And it's not even playing down to an opponent because it's a 2-0 opponent with one of the best defenses in football. I lean towards the Steelers, but just by that much, even with a backup.
Oh my, okay. That one stunned me. That one's, I knew you were going to pick the Steelers. I knew once Justin Herbert was questionable, you were going to pick the Steelers. A last second field goal. So what is your thoughts on Justin come Monday? Is he not in the driver's seat of this competition anymore?
No, I think that he'll still throw the 2 touchdowns. Like last week, I predicted a defensive touchdown. That's what was going to help get the Steelers up in points. This week, I think it's all Justin Fields, but I also think that you have to understand that even if he doesn't have a terrific game, look at the defense he's going up against. There's still chances for that defense to get wins and Justin Fields to still look impressive at the same time. That's what I'm predicting for Sunday.
Okay. Okay. That's a stunner for me. It's just a little too close for me to feel
comfortable. When are Steelers fans ever comfortable, though?
I don't, Easton Stick, man. Easton
or Taylor
Stick.
Heineke.
It's not going to be Taylor Heineke. And if it is Taylor Heineke, that means Easton Stick did not score 16 points. Didn't even come close. Man, I have a much higher score than that one. In my score, I think what you forgot is that the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things, J.K. Dobbins could be having the year of his life. The Steelers defense is as scary as any. Okay. Yeah. 16 points is a lot of points to be scored on the Steelers. And I get it. Mike Tomlin, I understand that. A lot of points to be scored. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers over the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm taking the under 35.5. Hard under 35.5. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers 23. Los Angeles Chargers 0. I'm saying they deuce them. Deuce them. This is with the full expectation Justin Herbert does not play. If he does play, we could bump that up to, 23-10, but it still doesn't look good. Still doesn't look good at all. I'm saying a strong 0. J.K. Dobbins could look as good as he's looked. That's fantastic. The Steelers' defensive line is probably the best defensive line in football, and I have a hard time arguing against that. I think Justin Fields puts on a little bit of a show. This is a gut feeling that Mike Tomlin just lets a little bit loose. So let's him have 1 or 2 of them. Let's see Justin Fields welcome, because it's just again, he is sick in the head a little bit. In the most loving way, in the most complimentary way. Mike Tomlin is just the guy that would go out there and be like, hey, Justin, these could be your fans for the next 10 years. Go have yourself a game, my friend. I just could see it happening. So I'm going to say 23-0 hits the under. Steelers feel real good in week 4, but Justin Herbert doesn't play. I'm going to toss that. Does not play. If he does, 23-10. But I feel good that he's not going to play, and I feel good about 23 to good old Zipperoo.
I got 2 things on that. One, how the heck am I supposed to make a graphic that says if Justin Herbert plays, it's 10. If he doesn't, it's 0. But I mean, I guess that's
go with the 0. Go with the 0. I want the 0 out there. I want the whole world to know that Noah said the Chargers were getting goose egged in this game.
Okay. Yeah. And 2, that might be the first time I've ever heard you predict a 0 in general. So you're feeling real confident about Easton Stick showing up and getting shafted by the Steelers defense.
Yeah, I mean, this Easton Stick got shafted by the Raiders defense, and the Raiders defense is nothing compared to the Steelers defense. This Steelers defense is crazy. And you don't have look at the Steelers defense is going to shut down J.K. Dobbins. I don't care what anybody says. They're going to Javonte Williams ran the ball 11 times for 17 yards last week. J.K. Dobbins is going to get shut down. Even if he has 60 yards, shut down. It's not going to be a big game. The Chargers don't have a wide receiver. Like, they just don't have one. What's his name? No, that was a different tight end that got hurt. Excuse me. So they do have Everett, but still, he's not enough to shut anybody down. Quentin Johnston's catching footballs, but that's a bit more of a surprise than it is like, Quentin Johnston's a stud. It's like, oh, wow, look at it. He's catching footballs. Didn't think that was ever going to happen in the NFL. I'm feeling good about the goose egg. I'm feeling real confident in the Pittsburgh Steelers where we stand right here. All right. With that said, I'll stop rambling and I'll stop making crazy predictions, even though I'm feeling good about this one. I know we got a lot of questions. If you got more of them, toss them in the chat. We'll answer all of them before we head out of here. What do we got?
Let's start with Chris's, because as always, appreciate you. Says, Noah, I think the Steelers should trade or sign a veteran tackle to solidify the offensive line. Between Jones struggling and the Fautanu injury, I am starting to get worried.
I mean, yeah, like, you don't you don't not worry about your starter getting hurt and the guy that you just benched having to start again and him definitely struggling. But I just don't think that you make a move there because you're not going to give up draft capital for a position that you clearly don't need anybody there. And you're going to take a chance on Jones. Like, you're going to give Broderick Jones as many opportunities as you could possibly give him before you give up on the kid. And the last thing you want to do is say, hey, dude, you're actually so bad right now that we went out and traded somebody to start over you. I also don't know, like, you're going to have to go trade for a backup. That's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to get a backup offensive right tackle and replace him with Broderick Jones. So I agree with the worry, but I just don't think the fix is to trade for another veteran.
This question came up, and I want to jump to it now because we've already separated from the conversation about Herbert enough. You mentioned vitamin T. We have a commenter that says, what the hell is vitamin T?
Can you look up the exact name?
Toradol.
Toradol. Thank you. I didn't want to get that wrong. It's essentially a shot that I don't know if it's still in the NFL. I got a feeling it is still in the NFL. It is definitely not good for you health-wise, but man, does it probably make you feel like God. It from what I've been told, you could take this thing and run a mile with a broken leg. So that's what it is. Players call it vitamin T. A lot of players, I would say not so much today, but when I first started, like, there would be jokes constantly about, oh, gotta go get my vitamin T shot before the game. Oh, just scheduled my vitamin T shot before the game. Like, people lived and died off this stuff. So that's what it is.
Nate Moore 10 wants to know, will Nick and Noah be at Steelers versus Chargers this weekend? Would love to meet up for a pick.
Hey, appreciate you. Nick will not be there. He lives in good old Virginia. I will be there. We'll be walking through. I always check out a couple of tailgates. I believe, I don't know, go follow around the 412, find out where they're tailgating. That's where I will definitely stop before this game. But I always make my way through real quick, but it's early. I'd say like 10:30. I'm bustling through these tailgates. Before that or after that, I got to head to the press box, start covering this game. So if you catch me, snag me for sure.
Let's go to Vibing with the Dogs, who says, that leads to my question, Noah. What's the percentage, if you had to guess, that Wilson is ready to play by week 4?
No, I do not think he's going to be ready to play in week 4. I really don't. I think we talked about this yesterday. Mm-hmm. You know, I just don't think he's going to play for the Steelers this year. I don't think he's nearly as close as he wants to believe, as maybe the Steelers wanted to believe early. The way I look at this is Russ is still a couple weeks out, and because of that, they're not going to rush anything. I have a hard time believing he's ready in week 4.
Let's move over to Dalton, who wants to know, do you see Rodney Williams suiting up Sunday, or will he be an inactive?
Okay, so I don't know if you know this story, Dalton. Nick, you definitely know this story. Couple, you're not allowed to cheer in the press box. You can't cheer for anything. And don't get me, like, I'm very unbiased. I'm not sitting there rooting for the Steelers. I love all you guys, and I know, oh man, what? But I'm a reporter. At the end of the day, that's my job, is to be fair and assess these guys without any fandom. I still bet like a degenerate, and Rodney Williams suited up, and I was sitting there with a pal in the press box that I will not name, and we put a couple of bucks on Rodney Williams anytime touchdown because the odds were like plus 10,000. It was ridiculous odds. Punt gets blocked. Rodney Williams is diving out the back of the end zone, misses getting a foot in by this much to recover the fumble, and I let out a very loud verbal like and then realized, like, okay, I'm gonna get in trouble. Stop. And I told him about that. He apologized. I asked him, you know what I mean? Game Check would probably cover it if you want to touch me a little bit or something, but he was cool about it. I think he will be active on Sunday, especially with Michael Pruitt being out, and he'll be utilized on special teams. Hot Rod's the man, dude. He's a good dude.
Let's go over to Dutch, that wants to know, why can't we put Dan Moore at right tackle? And if Dan can't hack it at right tackle, why are we criticizing Jones? Jones was a left tackle at Georgia, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And, Dan should be criticized for not being able to play right tackle. I don't disagree with that, but I still don't think that you take away your best left tackle to make him a right tackle because your second best left tackle can't play right tackle. You know, I know that that's confusing, but just Dan's the best offensive tackle the Steelers have right now. Crazy to say, but he is. Not potential-wise, not ability-wise, just performance-wise through these first 2 games. And you're not going to switch him to right because he can't play right. And yes, he does deserve criticism for that, but he's also gotten a lot of criticisms for that over the years.
Let's go over to Steven, who says, do you think the Chargers might hold Herbert out mainly due to our defensive line, knowing it might worsen his injury? And what is the over-under on Jones holding penalties on the right side?
Look at, I hope 0 on Jones. I hope 0 on Jones. We're going to go 1, and I'm going to take the unbiased. I'm going to take the over, but I'm hoping for under. I'm hoping for under. I got a lot of faith in Broderick here. When it comes to the defensive line, I do think that's going to play a role. Like, nobody wants to say they're scared. Nobody lives in their fears, but you don't want to get your quarterback hurt in week 3. And if he's already hurt, you don't want to waste him for the rest of the season, especially when the Chargers are thinking playoffs and beyond. So I just have a hard time sitting here saying the Chargers are thinking we're going to risk it in week 3 with Justin Herbert against potentially the best defense in football.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, how many yards do you see George Pickens having receiving wise, and how many yards will Najee get rushing? Got a parlay I want to set up on DraftKings.
Shout out to our boys over at DraftKings. Could you look this up? What is the over under on Najee and George? Because depending, I'm going to rough ball it here. I'm going to say George is 50.5 and Najee's probably like 62.5. I think I'm definitely taking the over on George. I'm probably taking the over on Najee, if we're going to be honest. But Najee, I would feel less confident in, only because I think that they split backs and the Chargers defense is good.
Najee Harris's over-under is 53.5 this weekend, while George's is, let me scroll real quick, 3.5 receptions or 48.5 yards.
Yeah, I'm going over 48.5 yards. I'm definitely going over 48.5 or 3.5 receptions. I honestly, I think you might just beat it. You might just get there, but I'd go over the Najee yards as well.
Let's go over to Angelo, who says, do you think Roman Wilson is better playing in the slot, or do you think he's better on the outside?
Yeah, no, he's a slot guy. He's always been a slot guy. He's a good slot guy. He's a good slot option, but that's okay. That's what you're looking for. Calvin Austin could play outside and inside. Van Jefferson could play outside. I would imagine Roman could play outside as well, but they're going to utilize him as a slot option. That's what he specializes in, and he's good, man. He's physical. He could run block close to the line. He's a talented kid in that slot, so I think that's where they're going to play him most.
Let's go over to Lifted Ones. Never mind. Let's go to Marlon. Lifted Ones wanted to know score predictions. We already touched on that in the last segment. Marlon says, if Roman comes out cooking, do you think they give him more plays than they expected?
Yeah, definitely. If Roman looks good, they're going to play Roman. The only way that it wouldn't be slowing him into a role because they're not confident in him. It'd be slowing him into the role because he hasn't played an NFL game yet. And, you just don't want to toss everything at him and say, go ahead, pal, see how you could do. You just came back from an ankle sprain. Let's rush things. But I agree with you. I think if Roman's cooking, man, they ain't taking Roman off the field because there is no reason to be taking your only wide receiver outside of George who's doing something off the field.
Let's go over to Lifted Ones now, who says, which unexpected player do you think is the X factor in this game? I'm saying Herbert with 2 sacks and one of them being a strip sack.
That's a good one. My X factor in this one, I got to get creative because it's getting boring to say Deshaun Elliott. It's getting boring to say Dante Jackson. My X, let's say this one. Unexpected player that's an X factor. Broderick Jones. Is that unexpected? Broderick Jones could make or break this game. How good is Broderick Jones going to be? I would say Broderick Jones is a sneaky option here that could control a massive outcome of this one, both protecting Justin Fields and opening up running lanes. How good does he play? How bad of a step backwards do you take without Troy? These are all massive questions. And the crazy part is Broderick has an opportunity to shut every single critic up and earn himself another opportunity in the starting lineup this week against the Chargers.
Let's go over to Vibin' with the Dogs, who says, which jersey should I wear to this weekend's game? TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, or Chris Boswell?
Wow. it's so hard to vote against Chris Boswell, right? Like it's so, how many Chris Boswell jerseys are going to show up in Acrisure? You might be one of like 3, like 75,000 people. You are wearing one of the, it's hard to go against Chris Boswell in this one. I think anytime you tossed a kicker out there, I was going to pick a kicker. So I'm going Chris Boswell.
Listen, the only way it would be better is if you were throwing on a Cameron Johnston jersey, but
oh yes,
we'll stick. I'm going to put my vote in for the Boswell as well, vibing, but have a good time at the game this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Inferno SRT. Says, any chance you could highlight a fan on the walk over and interview one?
Most of them are drunk and yelling at me, but I potentially. You get some guys. It's funny. Like I take the same path, and I always end up at a light. And when I'm done, and you always get the old people that are like hanging out there, getting ready to go to the game. And y'all, like I would say, once every like 3 weeks, somebody compliments me. They're like, "Hey, you're pretty good at that. You should do that for a living." I'm like, "Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It means a lot. It really does. It always warms my day." But the other weeks that I'm walking down, I'm getting yelled at by drunk dudes in the parking lot who are most likely opposing teams' fans, but they are definitely not people I'm trying to interview.
Let's go to Edward White, who asks, plain and simple, Cortland Sutton or Adam Thielen?
Oh, Cortland Sutton all day, all day. You could probably get him for a draft pick higher, and he's got so much more potential. He's a valid number 2 across the board in every way. Adam Thielen's great, but he's 34 years old. You're taking much less of a risk health-wise, and just what he's got left in the tank wise in Cortland Sutton. That's an easy one. I'd go Cortland every single time.
Let's go over to James Grammer, who says, I understand about physical practices to be physical in stadium, but how much friendly fire do we need to see before making real changes on how we run practices? Are they going too hard, and is that what's causing all of these injuries?
So I will give you guys a little bit of some insight. Nobody tell the Steelers PR. Steelers practices are not very physical. They're very physical during training camp, and there are a lot of injuries that happen during training camp. I agree with that. And if that somehow leads into this, and I don't know the science behind it, so I can't say whether or not it does. But during the season, they're pretty light. Like I remember it was last year, actually. Tomlin came to the podium on a Tuesday, and he was like, we're padding up in practice. We're going to hit every single day this week. And then I went to practice, and I remember talking to Pat Pete after practice, like off the record, and just joking about how the practice was just not physical at all. Like there was no tackling. They put pads on to simply run around. That's essentially all they did. NFL practices during the season are not physical. They're really not. Like you never tackle, and linemen are more physical than every other position because you have to make contact on every single play. But nobody's getting tackled, and it's almost never 100% live with pads on during the season.
Let's go to Hefe Boss Up, who wants to know, how many sacks do you think TJ gets this Sunday?
At least one, right? He's got to beat Joe Alt for one. But I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say TJ's struggling in the sack category right now. The NFL is exploding. Aiden Hutchinson, Keon White, Max Crosby, even Will McDonald had one, and he's at like 4.5 right now. TJ's got to step it up, my friend, and I think he's at what, 3? 2.
He had one each week.
Needs higher numbers than that.
One that wasn't
he had
back.
6 in week 1, but I hear what you're saying. He's got to step it up. I'm going to say 2 in this one. I'm going to say 2.
Let's go over to Cody Silva, who says, Noah and Nick, do you think Justin Fields has always been an all-star, and the reason he wasn't good at Chicago was because of their offensive line?
I don't know. There's both an argument for this and an argument against this. You could argue for this by saying the offensive line is atrocious. I mean, even CJ Stroud is telling Caleb Williams, dog, stop taking hits, man. You got to get out of there as fast as possible. It's just, you feel bad for the guy. You had to feel bad for Justin Fields. He had, 3 play callers in 4 years? I'm almost positive. In 3 years, three player callers in 3 years, something like that, which is not good, especially for a young developing quarterback. And his team, up until this last year, had literally nobody to throw the football to. I mean, DJ Moore, phenomenal talent, before DJ Moore, who we trying to say Darnell Mooney was the guy? No, he wasn't the guy. So he didn't have anybody. He had a terrible offensive line, and he had a bunch of head coaches and play callers that were not working. So you can make that argument that, yes, the potential is there. And I think that argument's valid. On the other side of it, his processing is very slow, and it's gotten pretty good since the start of the season. Like, his regular season processing is much better than his preseason and training camp processing was. So maybe that's all part of the development, but that argument has to be made too, that there were issues that were on Justin Fields and not the Bears. But he's still young. He's only 25 years old, and he was raw coming into the league. So maybe this is just, you're just starting to get who Justin Fields is now that he's in a steady, confident system.
Let's go over to egg salad. We have a lot of people in our comment section that have food as their
we really do. We really
just
do.
Noticing that. But egg salad wants to know a food question here. What is the go-to food while watching a game for you both?
I mean, wings and pizza are always the go-to. I got a pad thai place down the street that I rock with, but dips. I'm a big dip guy. Like, if I could wake up like the bye week, because I can't. It's hard to be like, oh, on game day, because on game day I wake up at 6 a.m. and I eat cereal and run out the door. But on like the off week, on the bye week, I try to like whip up a little buffalo dip, order pizza, get some wings. You know what I'm saying? How about you?
Yeah, pizza and wings is always the go-to. I mean, I had pizza this afternoon, so I'll go to pizza any day. Beautiful. But also like throwing an Italian sub in there every once in a while to lighten it up a little bit. Not that it's healthy, because it's not, but it lightens everything up. It's a little bit less greasy than everything else that's typically on the menu.
Yeah, 100%. I live by Jimmy John's. We've had this conversation before, and I'll snag the giant Jimmy John's. That's 2 full hoagies and 1 hoagie. That'll get me through a game.
Yeah, I go to a place called Primo's, and their main sub is Primo, and it is 2 feet. They usually ask, you do realize that is made to size on that poster? And I'm like, correct. Cut it in 4s, and I'll take it to go.
Hey, pal.
Let's go.
Yeah, I got a long day ahead of me, okay? I need some food. Yeah.
Let's go over to Hefe Boss up again, who says, do you think J.K. Dobbins gets held under 100 rush yards in this game?
Yes. Yes, I do. Pretty confident in it as well. The Steelers' run defense is vastly improved, and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Aguilar didn't even have a good game against them. And then Javonte Williams and an offensive line that wasn't bad coming into that game looked terrible. So I would say, yes, the Steelers' defensive line is one of the best, if not the best in football. Isaiah Loudermilk plays fantastic right now. DeMarvin Leal's making an impact. Montravius Adams and Keanu Benton, like, I'm sorry, but there might not be a better 1-2 nose tackle punch in football. Those two are ridiculous right now. And then you have Cam Hayward, who's playing great, and Larry Ogunjobi, who's playing the best he's played since he's been a Steeler, on top of, the rest of that defense. So, yeah, I feel pretty confident he'll be under 100 yards.
Let's go over to Marlon, who says, if Broderick comes out and has no pressures and Dan Moore struggles, do you think it increases his chances to go to left tackle when Fautanu is healthy?
I do, but I'm not gonna discount or rule out Dan Moore. Dan Moore has held his own against some pretty good edge rushers in his day, including, Myles Garrett multiple times. So I would say, to answer your question, yes, I do think that it opens the door. I think that's where the Steelers are headed right now, is this is really their first opportunity to see what they got in their 2 young guys. But at the same time, I'm not going to say Dan's going to struggle, because I don't think he's going to.
Let's go over to Andrew, who says, if Baltimore and Cincy both somehow lose this weekend, how likely do you think it is the Steelers end up taking the division?
If Cincy and Baltimore, high. You can't start. Cincy's 0-2 as well. Yep. So you can't start 0-3. Like, your chances of making the playoffs at 0-3 are almost zero. And I don't care how good you are. Your chances of making the playoffs at 0-3 are almost zero. And if the Steelers go 3-0, yeah, I feel pretty good that the Steelers are firmly in the driver's seat of the AFC North. Even if their schedule turns out and their record turns out to be exactly what we thought it was going to be, it's more so just Baltimore and Cincy. They're going to have a hard time coming up with 11 wins against. They have a tough schedule too. They're going to have a hard time coming up with 11 wins if they start 0-3.
And let's finish it off with this one, even though nobody wants to see it. Vibing with the dogs cripples us with this question that says, is it possible this game ends in a tie?
Man, I hope not. I hope. I think if you tie a game, if Justin Herbert does not play and the Steelers tie the Chargers, that's probably worse than losing. You know, I think ties are worse than losing. It's a tough. I've witnessed a tie. I mean, we've all witnessed a tie, but I've sat in the press box for Mason Rudolph tying Detroit, and I've watched the Steelers get smoked by bad teams. I've watched the Steelers get smoked by good teams. I've watched them tie the Lions, and no locker room was worse than tying the Lions. So I hope not. Man, I hope not. But, you know, in the NFL, you never say never. So we'll see.
On that sour note, that's a wrap for today's questions.
All right. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll be back on Monday, but don't forget we have the walkover and clips going on all weekend long. And then you can find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers leading up to, during, and after the game. Enjoy the home opener and another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.